Hello, everybody, and happy holidays. As a gift from me to you, how would you like to not only have a consultation, but along with your consultation, get a free certification membership to the Pulse of the Universe Academy of Vedic Astrology? If you schedule any consultation 60 minutes or over, you get at least a 2-month certification membership. If you schedule the 3 90-minute consultation package, you get 6 free months at the Pulse of the Universe Academy of Vedic Astrology. This offer is only open until this coming Friday, the 18th of December at midnight London time. So if you're interested in scheduling, you need to do so at the link that you'll see above. So when we invest a lot of our energy and a lot of our resources and a lot of our time, all of which I guess are resources, towards a particular pursuit, and we put our passion towards it, and suddenly we begin to find that the pursuit that we put our passion towards is suddenly beginning to, well, for lack of a better way to put it, collapse. How do we respond to that? How do you respond to that? That's the questions you're likely going to find yourself, well, kind of puzzling over in the next few months, but most especially between the 21st of December and the middle of January. We're going to be experiencing an intensifying alignment between Jupiter and Saturn in Sravana Nakshatra. This alignment becomes exact on the 21st of December. Something is changing, as I'm sure you've been experiencing from the last several months. And there's no use trying to clutch on to what you had in place once before, because that thing that you've been kind of grabbing onto for, well, as a, for lack of a better way to put it, as a security blanket, you can't really grab onto that anymore and suck your thumb, because it's just not really going to work anymore for you. As a matter of fact, there's probably maybe that much security left in that little security blanket that you're perhaps mulling over, investing more time and energy into, along with kind of pulling the blankets up over your head, wishing you could hide from what you're going to have to face in the coming months. But why do you want to hide from it? Because on one level, you don't have the dashing of your hopes and dreams and visions. And yes, I can hear you as I'm saying that going, well, of course I do. The thing that brought me stability is beginning to fall apart. The thing that made me feel comfortable is beginning to fall apart. That person that I liked having in my life, they're no longer there. And you can focus on what is no longer there as much as you want to. Or you can pay attention to what's in front of you. And at this particular moment in time, there's a lot in front of you. There's a lot that's open to you. And maybe there's so much open to you to the extent that in the coming months, you're going to have a hard time figuring out which direction you should go in. As a matter of fact, you may feel not only a growing sense of dualism, but quadrism, multiplism. There we go. That's the word for it. And it's going to be hard for you to sort which direction you should go in. I could just say the ages old thing of, you're going to need to tune into your heart. And yes, that's part of it, but you need to even, kind of work on a deeper level than just looking at your heart, right? Quite often we think we're listening to our heart, and really what we're kind of tuning into is our head. And the more you see multiplicity in the coming months, the more confused you're going to become. So just like you learned in elementary school about reducing things, reducing numbers, reducing fractions, whatever it is that you're reducing, you're going to do a little bit of reducing in the months ahead. As a matter of fact, humanity is going to be doing that very same thing. Ultimately, we need to pick a path, and we need to commit to it with openness and awareness. Or at the very least, open and aware people need to do that, because as always with situations like this, there will always be people who have to be dragged kicking and screaming. And there will always be people who are open to change and who are willing to kind of work with the changes that are coming along. So how can you work with that on an individualistic level? And what are some of the high points of this particular alignment? Well, let's talk about how you can work on that on an individualistic level, right? One of the key themes of Sravana Nakshatra is presenting us with a multitude of paths, right? Our limited mind, we can't tune into the infinite in its totality. The moment that we try to do that, we begin to sense multiplicity. The more multiplicity we begin to sense, then the more confused we become. So what you have to do is you need to look beneath the surface and try to take a look at all the different options which are opening up to you. Beneath the surface of all of those options, try to take a look at how many of those options have something in common that is something that's desired, and how many of those options have something in common that's not desired. Well, the more of those that you're putting in the undesired path, they can go out the door. The more of those that are seeming to, well, appear to be desired, right? Then that leaves you with less choices. Then you just kind of have to think, as the situation is beginning to evolve, where your heart really lies. The moment you do that, you'll begin to see that from that smaller group of paths that you've kind of discerned, you have even fewer paths until you finally reach the point where you'll see that there's only a few different directions that you can go in. And all of those directions have one thing in common, and that's building a new way forward. Only building a desired new way forward, and building a way forward where your heart can really be into what you're trying to create, rather than being completely and ultimately frustrated. Now there's one little hindrance to that particular plan. Something that you want may not be something that somebody else wants. So in the months that come, you're likely going to find yourself in a position where the direction that you're feeling like you need to go in doesn't fit in with the direction other people in your environment might want to go in. If you can't find, again, commonality between the two of you, then you're likely going to have divergent paths. And you have to not be afraid to walk the new path that's opening up for you in your own individualistic, free and open way. You need to be willing to do that. And you need to be willing to do that even if doing so brings conflict your way. Hey, on one level, we like to think that we can live, in a perfect universe. And hey, that's a good vision to have. But if we're not settled in here, that perfect universe externally is never going to come. And I would dare say part of being at peace with what's, or I should say, having peace in the world is being at peace within yourself, right? So you got to settle that bit first. And sometimes settling that bit means that you encounter conflict, but how can you be at peace with the conflict, right? I think the only answer to that lies, here, right? Are you committed enough? Are you committed enough to where you want to go? Or are you perhaps, vacillating between going, well, I want to go this way, but my partner doesn't want to go that way, or my friends don't think I should go that way. This is about you. This is about your soul and where you need to take yourself. And you need to be willing to assert yourself. Now, Saturn and Jupiter are transiting through a Dhatu Nakshatra. Dhatu Nakshatras are the mineral nakshatras, and they always have this tonality of support. We want to feel supported in our direction. And in the months that come, you'll likely find a level of support with people who share mutual interests, but you'll also likely find people who don't. And that's part of the whittling down process. A good, or I should say, a hallmark of this particular Saturn-Jupiter conjunction is the concept of structured growth. We don't like hitting that resistance, but that resistance ultimately is something that can be helpful. Now, in the weeks ahead, Saturn and Jupiter are also forming an alignment with Uranus, and yes, I'm talking about the outer planets here, in Bharani Nakshatra. So it's about leaving something behind. It's about a transition to a new way. And yes, that transition can be ultimately a little bit difficult, but you need to be disciplined enough to go through the birthing pains that you might experience. And around mid-January, you're likely going to be confronted as Mars is transiting through Ashwini Nakshatra and begins to come into closer proximity with Uranus. Tensions may heighten, frustration may heighten, and you need to be willing to be behind your own cause, right? And so, I'm just going to say this because I know that this has been a theme that I've repeated here, but not everybody can agree with us, right? We like to be idealistic and we like to think that perfection can exist or that, a utopian society can be there. But, really on a certain level, this school that we're going through, and yes, I'm going to say this school, this great big world school that we're going through, if we didn't encounter resistance from other people, if we didn't encounter opposition, we'd never find ourselves growing. Life isn't about agreement all the time. Life isn't about always finding that commonality. Sometimes there will be people who come into our lives that we can't coexist with, and we have to be willing to kind of recognize that, take some space from that, and commit ourselves to the direction that we need to go in. And in the weeks and the months ahead, because this particular alignment, albeit it won't be in Sravana Nakshatra after the 4th of February, because Jupiter is going to be moving into Dhanishta, and then further on later in the year, Jupiter will even be transiting Shatabishak, but we'll be experiencing Jupiter and Saturn traveling in proximity to each other through the same sign all the way up until the 13th of May this year. So there are some profound changes in the works, and we need to all kind of begin to sort out where we fit into the bigger puzzle that we're all facing. And I really want you to remember that concept, which is reduce, right? Really kind of whittle down your choices. Try to see what things have in common. As you do so, you're going to find the things that you don't want in your life, and you'll be left with, ultimately only a few choices. And I'll bet by the time you do that, you're going to discover that each of those choices really is the same choice. At that particular moment, it's really easy to choose because any pathway is as good as the other. And if you could use a little bit of help with sorting through, once again, up until this Friday, the 18th of December at midnight London time, all of my consultations come with the free Pulse of the Universe Academy of Vedic Astrology certification membership. You can schedule through my astrological services page, which you will find linked above. That's going to do it for this look at the Jupiter-Saturn transit through Sravana Nakshatra, which is taking place all the way up until the 4th of February when Jupiter begins to shift into Dhanishta. That's going to do it for this time. And until next time, please do take the very best care of yourself. Bye now.